Hi, this is Beth Cooper with Bluebird Studios. Join us as we talk to Patrick Lee, who will be here the first week of June, about learning the language of painting. Okay, so hi everybody. This is Beth Cooper with Bluebird Studios in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And it's in January, and we just had a big snow. Thank goodness we finally got some snow because it was getting so dry, but it's Monday morning, and I have Patrick Lee with me.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so how are you doing, Patrick?
I'm doing great.
Good.
How
Well,
are you doing?
good. Okay, so anyway, I'm here with Patrick, and he's coming to Santa Fe in June. And he's going to be here. The workshop runs June 3rd through the 6th. That's 4 days. And we have an icebreaker the evening before, which is very casual, not mandatory or anything, but that's June 2nd at 5 p.m. And then we'll just dig in. And Patrick's workshop is, let's see, the language of painting, right?
Yes.
Shape, color, and pattern. Is that what it was?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, we're both prepared.
Yeah.
So anyway, gosh, and then I'm just like, who is this guy, Patrick Lee? And I started looking at your work, and I'm like, I honestly, and I mean, I follow a lot of artists. I live in Santa Fe. Like, you're still at Meyer Gallery?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I love
So,
them. Yeah.
I mean, I know the guys at Meyer really well, Jordan and that gang. So, but I don't think there's anybody else. There probably is, but I don't know who else paints like you.
Mm, thank you. Well, I borrow, I guess if you take stuff from enough people, borrow or steal or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah, yeah.
you mix it together enough, it kind of is easy to disguise, I guess, or it just comes out being different, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I just find it just so fascinating. And the way you compose and the way you have an image that is there, but then it's really not there. And I don't know, it's just so cool. So I guess what I want to talk about is this article I read about you that said that you have an interpretive style.
Yeah.
Okay. And you work from memory and sketches. And
Yeah, I will. Yeah. Yes.
uh
That's a big part of it. Yeah.
one thing that really struck me was this ink blot idea.
Yeah.
So, are you going to do that in your workshop?
Oh, yeah. That's a big part of what we do.
Okay,
That's
so
going to be the first part of what we do is just letting our imaginations kind of go. After I establish a little bit about getting that pattern down, like all this stuff behind me. These are all
yeah,
just
yeah.
yeah.
So
Um,
tell me about this ink blot thing, because
um, I guess in a more important way, exercising who you actually are. It's a very personal thing. So if you and I and 10 other people looked at the same blot, we're probably going to come up with different things, right? And sometimes you might notice things in there that you don't know why you saw them, or it's like, wow, I haven't thought about that in a long time, or why am I seeing that? But I see it. It's as I think that's really is what that is your subconscious mind
how interesting.
poking through and making it like having a say. I talk about that a lot too in the workshop, like your conscious mind versus your subconscious mind and what those things want.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
ink blot is one of the first exercises
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
lessons.
Yeah.
Okay.
6 by 8, maybe 4 by 6 size. They're generally small. You can probably get two of them on a. I got a sketchbook right here. You can probably get two of them on a page like that, or two or
Oh,
three of
yeah.
them, depending on the size. Maybe four. But they're done. They're done very quickly. You don't labor over them. You spend a couple minutes on them, and then you move on to the next one.
With ink.
One of the things I've been doing is doing them on these. I do them on these little note cards. You can
Oh,
buy
yeah.
these staples, and you just use the whole thing for. And you maybe do like I do an exercise. We part of what I have in the syllabus for the course too is that making a lot of work, having quantity over quality, not worrying so much about how good it looks, but that you made something.
Right, right. I know. I'm guilty of that. Of when,
That's a common thing that if you make stuff, you fall into that
yeah.
because you're kind of you're opening yourself up to things, like your own self-assessment and then the possibility of other people critiquing it or whatever, so it's like it's got to be perfect.
Oh, do the students take these ink blobs and then develop them as the days go on?
They can. We're actually going to do them in two separate ways. The first way I want to do it is to learn how to break down an image into these like stark black and white shapes, an image that we're using or a landscape or whatever we have, right? Um, the second way is really like an improvisational thing, like we were talking about, like the initial thing we were talking about, like basically making Rorschach tests or ink blobs. I think you're more comfortable if you know how to, because the way I started doing them is I kind of did it in the reverse. I started just making, I took a bunch of formats of sizes. I used like squares or like 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 rectangles. And I just plotted a bunch of them out on a bunch of sketchbook pages and then just went through and just made a bunch of abstract designs. But when I realized I could do that, I was like, well, I should take this to a drawing session and break those things, those shapes I'm seeing there into actual black and white shapes. And it starts making you make decisions about not just what the figure, in our figure ground relationship with the actual object you're painting is going to look like, but what the background is doing as well. A lot of times I think people just get so fixated on the object that they don't think about the context that it's in,
Yeah.
the way it rests in the rest of the composition. And so these kind of exercise, I call them improvisations at that point, when we're just going out of our head, breaking a visual breaking some kind of visual data down into darks and lights. Then they're more comfortable with improvising and making stuff up. It's a lot
So,
easier to make stuff up if you can make something that actually is there. It's a lot easier to draw something out of your imagination if you can draw it from
so this
reality.
isn't a noton per se.
Technically, it's not. That's what I call them. But I mean, if you want to go by like strict definitions, it isn't, because I do let some grays go in there, usually by the thinning of the water, because they're all done in acrylic. When we do these little ones, they're all done in
Oh,
acrylic,
oh, that's black acrylic.
just black acrylic. And there's also this other color I like that I've been using, started using recently, is it's called graphite gray. But it's all just like black or gray or earth tones, something that's on the darker end of this. I mean, as long, but it's like this size of a palette knife, painting knife,
Oh yeah.
on something that's this big, so
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't really think about getting in there and drawing per se,
Right.
because there's nothing, you can't really draw with this at that scale. You
Right.
can try, but it's not going to work probably. So it forces you to think in the big shapes. Like, I want to know what the painting is going to look like from 50 feet away.
Uh-huh.
And that's what's really going to capture, encapsulate everything, is the design. It's really a design based mindset and idea.
Uh-huh.
The best things happen when you're just passively. If I have a couch over here, if I just sit in there and I just kind of stare at this wall, just kind of like passively,
Uh-huh.
sometimes I'll see something, or something will occur to me that I wouldn't normally have thought of if I didn't have things laying out in front of me. It's very important. I talk about that in the workshop too. It's like, it's
Really
important to
interesting.
have
Okay.
things laying out in front of you so you can be prompted by them.
Let's go over real quick because I put on the description that it's oil and acrylic, but pastels are accepted too.
Oh yeah, you could really use anything. You
Okay.
could really, because really what we're thinking about is just how comfortable are you with that medium, right? You don't want you want to be to a point where you're doing these kind of things, I guess, where you're kind of comfortable with the medium.
This is so interesting. I'm so excited for you to be here. Did you make all this? I mean, I know you just said you borrowed from a lot of artists, but you majored in art and you were an
Yeah,
abstract artist in college.
but yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Okay, so when you were learning that abstract art in college, did you do this kind of pattern development?
No, actually, that's interesting. I was still really narrative driven, and that's something I've only recently started to really, I mean, in the last couple of years, really started to think about, like, how narrative driven something is as opposed to how design form driven it is, content versus form driven. And I find, for me, like, it's easier for me to work if I'm working from a framework of form based thought, rather than content driven narrative, kind of, where it's like everything has to be about something
Right.
that's outside of the work. In other words, when I think of a piece that's heavily narrative driven, it's pointing to something. It's taking you. It's like telling you. It's like this is a painting, but I want you to go somewhere in your mind that's outside of this painting. It's telling a story about something else. Whereas a form
Love
driven
that.
is if your form, it's almost like the form is the content. You know, if I stand in front of a Jackson Pollock painting, it's big swirls of paint. He's not asking you to go somewhere in your mind, somewhere else beyond the material, but your mind does. Ironically, or however you want to, your mind does, it does take you away. I think with abstraction, you have more, there's more room to move with your thoughts than it.
I took a class in college. We had to abstract a still life,
Yeah.
and it was hard.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, it can be. And it's, you really, because it's really about making choices.
Yeah.
It's really about picking the one essential thing that's going to describe or delineate what you're trying to and conceptualize. It is the work of a visual artist. I think and that's not an original. That's something I got from one of my mentors, Frank Webb. He said that the job of the artist, and his teacher said that,
Yeah.
was that the job of the artist was to conceptualize all this information and reality to bring it down to something that could fit within I'm looking at this little frame we're in, something that could fit in the world of that
My
painting.
mind is kind of exploding right now because I just think this is so cool.
I
It's
do
not,
too. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, simplification, or is that too simple of a description?
No, it is simplification. It really is. It's like, because there's so much visual data,
Mhm.
and you want to kind of encapsulate basis of work is more fun, because really it really comes down to, I want to paint that thing because I think it looks cool. Like,
Mhm.
and not be afraid. I think working from abstraction makes you not afraid to see what happens when you try something. It's a lot easier to start with that abstract quality and tighten it up than it is to start something that everything's in its place and then break it down. It's much harder, I think, to do that, and it's really not as much fun, I don't think,
Yeah.
to create something really meticulously and then break it down. I'm a big proponent of, don't listen to anyone. Like, as much as I'm doing this,
I'm gonna spit
like
my coffee
it's
out.
it's funny because when you start looking into things, and I think Goethe or somebody said something that when you start working in the direction of some kind of goal, the universe is there to kind of help, like things will happen, and I don't remember,
Yeah.
I'm butchering that, but it's that
Oh, I know
idea
what you
that
mean.
it's like when you buy a red VW bus, everybody has one. You're like, there's another one. You're whatever, in your brain, the amygdala
You're
takes
tuned
over.
into that frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of thing where I was looking a lot of stuff on creativity, and I heard a couple people say, don't listen. One of them was Nick Cave. I hear a couple stories about him, the musician. He's like, don't listen to anyone. Just make stuff. Don't listen to what anyone has to say. And then I read this story about the New England painter Aldro Hibbert. It's in a book I got about him up at the Art Center in Gloucester, up in Massachusetts. And he said when he got out of college, him and a friend of his went and visited Sorolla in Spain when he was a really old man. And he said the first thing he said to him, he said he spoke to him in French. He said the first thing he said to him was, "Don't go to school." It's the first thing he said. You guys are, they didn't know they were art students. He's like, don't bother with going to school. And that's not to, I think what he's really saying there is, it's important to learn. It's important, obviously, to learn. Like, we learned our basic recipe, we learned the white keys we learn like the tools. But
Mhm.
then there comes to a point where you know enough, and
Right.
you have to work. You have to make work. There's no other way to learn beyond the basics and kind of find your own thing and your own way of working and your own practice, unless you actually make work, that you listen to people, just use those tools and go make something.
All that knowledge is in there somewhere. You just have to trust that your brain knows it because you had said, what did you say in one of those things that you had a technical process. Okay, in one of those articles, it said that you finally had a technical process that worked.
Yeah. And
So there has to be some learning to get that
oh,
technical.
there is. That's what I just said. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to learn those basics. You have to learn that there's a saturation point,
Yeah. I agree.
not a saturation point beyond which you can learn, but a
Mhm.
saturation point beyond which any more learning on top of what you've already done on top of unused knowledge is
Mhm.
kind of wasted a little bit. Um, this reminds me of, I really got into Henry Henchy last year. I was really
Oh,
studying
yeah.
him and learning people, and,
Mhm.
and a good friend of mine in Maryland studied with a guy that studied with him directly.
Mhm.
So I got a lot of information from him about what Henchy taught and all this. And an interesting thing about Henchy is that he was used to listening to Hawthorne, who would get guys in. And my friend Tim Beal told me this story. It's a funny thing. He said, Hawthorne was used to having these great like painters and like these golden age illustrators like Dean Cornwell and N.C. Wyeth, like people of that category coming to him and wanting to learn his concepts of color. And he would say, "Stop drawing. You're drawing too much." Henchy's thing. One of Henchy's phrases was, "Until you have the right colors, there's nothing to draw with." That was something he said.
Yeah, wasn't he kind of known as a colorist?
He's a massive colorist. Yeah, that's what he said. He's like, you got to quit thinking about drawing and start thinking about spots of color, because that was Hawthorne's thing. Now, what Henchy did, and this is the point my friend Tim made, is that he's in there in the early 70s and late 60s, and he's telling these young people that don't know how to draw, and he's just kind of saying what Hawthorne did. Is like, stop drawing, just make spots of color. Um,
Well, that's so interesting. But okay, so from the paint blots to what the students can expect by the end of the workshop.
well, from the paint blots, and depending on, I don't know if we talked about whether we'll go outside or not. It's a possibility, maybe, but
Yeah,
it's
we
all
can
the
go
same.
outside.
It's
Yeah,
all the
that's a
same,
good
whether
time of
it's
year here.
yeah, whether it's studio or inside.
Yeah.
Your ability to map out and simplify those shapes, that's the biggest thing, the pattern. And then from there we go from abstraction to the color aspect. I'm not an expert colorist, but I love color. I have a very simple way I use color that's very intuitive. But then we start to explore, okay, I know the colors that are there, but what if I start using these other colors, using that pattern and all the things that the pattern encompass, the size of each shape, the edges where the shapes meet, the actual the surface texture of the actual paint. All those things come into play. We play with all those things. Everybody's going to
Right.
approach those differently. Feel the effects of it right away. But if you keep the practice up, it's things to like. It's like the idea of feeding somebody a fish or teaching them
Yeah.
how to fish.
Yeah.
I'd rather, this is more of a learning how to fish thing.
So I'm so glad I discovered you.
I'm glad you did too. I think it's going to be fun. I love.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
we'll talk later about, travel arrangements and stuff like that. And I'll keep you posted on your workshop students.
Thank you so much, Beth. It was really fun.